Your blood pressure medication is in your system right now, doing exactly what it was prescribed to do. And somewhere in your kitchen, in your refrigerator, in your pantry, in your supplement cabinet, there are things working against it, not because you were careless, not because you ignored instructions, but because almost nobody explains that the food, the drinks, the healthy swaps, the supplements, the timing of your coffee, even the way you start your morning, all change how well amlodipine, Losartan, or Lisinopril can actually protect you. Every single day, your choices are either helping your medication do its job or quietly forcing it to work harder than it should. And most people taking these medications have never been told which side of that equation they're currently on. There is one drink I need to get to you before anything else. A drink many adults use, specifically because they believe it is one of the healthiest hydration choices available. It's sold in health stores, it's promoted as natural, and for people on Losartan or Lisinopril, it can quietly push potassium in the wrong direction, even when everything else looks right. I'm going to name it in a moment, but first, the 10 things I'm covering today are the 10 food and drink conversations that should have happened the day your prescription was written. Some will confirm what you already suspected, several will genuinely surprise you. And one of them explains why the healthiest looking item in your refrigerator may be the exact thing interfering with the balance your medication is trying to create. Before we continue, do not stop, change, or skip any medication because of this video. Use this information for your next appointment, your next pharmacy conversation, and your next label check. I want to tell you about a patient I'll call Richard. He was 72, very careful, very disciplined, and far more health conscious than most people his age. He had cut back on sodium. He avoided obvious junk food. He knew that Losartan could affect potassium, so he had already reduced bananas and oranges. He was doing what he believed was everything right, and yet his lab work kept drifting. His potassium was creeping upward. His blood pressure readings were inconsistent, and the cause was sitting in his refrigerator the entire time. We'll come back to Richard. Right now, potassium, 1. The potassium problem most people only understand halfway. If you take Lisinopril or Losartan, your medication affects the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system. In plain English, that means your body may hold on to more potassium than it used to. For many people, that's manageable. It's monitored. It doesn't become dangerous on its own. The problem starts when medication-related potassium retention meets food-related potassium overload. Most people only think of bananas, but the list is much bigger than bananas. Avocados, tomatoes, potatoes, sweet potatoes, orange juice, beans, dried fruit, spinach, tomato sauce, vegetable juice, even healthy smoothies, built around fruit, greens, and yogurt, can become potassium heavy very quickly. This is where people get into trouble. They remove one obvious item, feel safe, and never realize how many other foods are adding up around it. What to do? If you're on Losartan or Lisinopril, do not assume you only need to watch 1 or 2 foods. Look at your total pattern, not one banana, not one potato, the full day. Because potassium problems are rarely caused by one dramatic mistake. They're caused by 5 moderate choices stacking together. 2. The drink that blindsides careful patients. Richard's answer was not in a banana, it was not in tomato sauce, it was not in a supplement, it was coconut water. Coconut water is marketed as clean hydration, natural hydration, better hydration, heart-healthy hydration. But one serving can carry a surprisingly high potassium load, and many people drink it daily without ever counting it, because in their mind it is a beverage, not a potassium source. That's the trap. People track food, they forget drinks. They forget the healthy extras. They forget the bottle they grab after a walk or after yard work because it feels safer than soda. For someone on Losartan or Lisinopril, that repeated potassium exposure can quietly matter. And what made Richard's case so frustrating is that nobody had ever asked him what he was drinking. Not once. What to do? Check every beverage you use regularly. Coconut water, green juices, vegetable juices, electrolyte drinks, potassium-fortified waters, recovery drinks. If it sounds healthy, that does not automatically mean it is medication-friendly. 3. Salt substitutes. The heart-healthy switch that can become the hidden problem. This one catches people because the intention is good. They're told to reduce sodium, so they stop using regular salt and switch to a salt substitute. Sounds smart. Except many salt substitutes replace sodium chloride with potassium chloride. And now the person who is already retaining more potassium because of lisinopril or Losartan is adding another concentrated potassium source directly onto food, sometimes several times a day, without ever thinking of it as potassium. A quarter teaspoon here, a quarter teaspoon there. Soup, eggs, vegetables, chicken, salad. By the end of the day, the extra potassium may be far more significant than the patient realizes. This is why people can be eating healthy and still moving in the wrong direction. What to do? Turn the container around and read the ingredient list. If it says potassium chloride, that is not a free food. That is something you should review with your doctor or pharmacist based on your medication and your lab work. Use herbs, lemon, garlic, pepper, vinegar, onion powder, and salt-free seasoning blends that do not rely on potassium chloride instead. 4. Grapefruit is not the whole story if you take amlodipine. Many people on amlodipine already know about grapefruit. What most people do not know is that grapefruit is not the only citrus that matters. Amlodipine is processed through a liver enzyme pathway, and grapefruit can interfere with that process, allowing more of the medication to stay active than intended. That can mean more swelling, more dizziness, more flushing, more lightheadedness, and more drop in pressure than expected. But grapefruit has cousins in this conversation. Pomelo, Seville oranges, bitter orange products, traditional orange marmalade, made from Seville oranges, certain citrus liqueurs, some specialty jams and imported products. So a person can proudly say, "I never touch grapefruit," while still taking in the same kind of interference through a different fruit. That is what makes this dangerous. It hides behind technicality. What to do? If you take amlodipine, grapefruit avoidance should be broader than grapefruit juice alone. Check marmalades, check citrus blends, check specialty fruit products. Regular sweet oranges, lemons, limes, and mandarins are generally not the issue people worry about here. The issue is the bitter citrus family people don't suspect. 5. Black licorice is not candy in this conversation, it's chemistry. If you have high blood pressure and you eat real black licorice regularly, or drink licorice root tea, or use digestive products containing licorice root, this deserves your attention. Real licorice can affect sodium and potassium balance in a way that pushes blood pressure in the wrong direction. Not licorice flavor, not every candy that tastes like licorice, real licorice root. And the reason it matters is because people often treat it as harmless. A tea, a natural remedy, a nostalgic candy, something small, but small repeated daily becomes biologically meaningful. This is especially important for older adults who are already on blood pressure medication and may also be managing swelling, kidney issues, or fluid balance concerns. What to do? If you use licorice root in any form, do not brush it off as insignificant. Put it on your medication review list right beside your prescriptions. 6. The sodium problem is almost never the salt shaker. Most people with blood pressure issues think sodium means one thing: don't add table salt. But the sodium fighting your medication usually arrives long before you ever sit down to eat. It's in canned soups, deli meats, frozen meals, jarred sauces, bread, crackers, restaurant food, fast casual bowls, salad dressings, cottage cheese, pickles, seasoning packets, instant noodles, breakfast sandwiches, rotisserie chicken, healthy wraps, lean turkey slices, and here is why this matters so much. Amlodipine lowers pressure partly by helping blood vessels relax, but high sodium intake increases fluid retention and raises the resistance the medication is working against. So the medication is trying to lower pressure while the diet is quietly rebuilding the pressure from the other side. That is why some people on a stable dose get wildly different readings on different days without changing their medication at all. The dose didn't suddenly fail. Monday's lunch was different from Wednesday's lunch. What to do? Do not just ask whether a food tastes salty. Check how much sodium is actually in the foods you eat most often, especially the foods you believe are fine because they look normal, or low-fat, or protein-rich. because hidden sodium beats obvious sodium every time. We're 6 things in. So far, you've got potassium overload from foods people underestimate, coconut water hiding in plain sight, salt substitutes acting like a stealth potassium source, grapefruit relatives that most patients never connect to amlodipine, black licorice working against blood pressure control, and processed foods delivering sodium in amounts that can neutralize what your medication is trying to do. The next 4 involve the drinks people use for energy, the powders people mix for health, the restaurant meals people don't think count because they only happen on weekends, and the better-than-water products that can be anything but better for the person on these medications. If this is helping you connect dots nobody has connected for you before, stay with me. 7. Sports drinks and electrolyte powders are not automatically safe just because they sound medical. This is one of the fastest growing problems because the wellness market has trained people to believe that electrolytes are always beneficial. But beneficial for whom? For the person running a marathon in the heat for 3 hours? Maybe. For the person on Losartan or Lisinopril, sitting at home, taking in extra potassium or sodium through flavored powders and hydration packets every single day? That can be a very different conversation. Some products are sodium heavy, some are potassium heavy, some are both. Some are low sugar but still packed with minerals your medication already affects, and people use them casually, in the car, after a walk, after gardening, with breakfast, with medication. What to do? Read the label before you trust the marketing. Hydration is not the same thing as appropriate for your medication. Electrolyte is not the same thing as safe for daily use. If you are on blood pressure medication, especially Losartan or Lisinopril, these products should not get a free pass. 8. Green powders, meal replacement shakes, and wellness smoothies can become potassium bombs. This is where healthy eating can accidentally become medication conflict. A person wants to improve their routine, so they start the day with a smoothie. Spinach, banana, Greek yogurt, almond butter, maybe avocado, maybe chia seeds, maybe a scoop of greens powder, maybe a wellness blend, maybe coconut water as the liquid base. Every ingredient sounds healthy, but now you've built a dense potassium delivery system before 9 a.m. Or they use a meal replacement shake fortified with minerals and never notice the potassium content because they're focused on protein, calories, or sugar. Or they mix a greens powder into water because the label promises heart support, cellular energy, and healthy aging. This is why nutrition advice without medication context can backfire. Healthy for the general public is not automatically appropriate for the person on a specific prescription. What to do? If you take Losartan or Lisinopril, stop judging smoothies and wellness products by their image. Judge them by their ingredient list and nutrition panel, because your kidneys and your medication do not care whether the potassium came from a fresh smoothie, an organic shake, or a neon sports drink. 9. Alcohol and caffeine don't just affect your energy. They affect the way your pressure behaves. Let's start with alcohol. Alcohol can lower pressure in the short term and increase dizziness, especially when it overlaps with medication that is already relaxing blood vessels. For someone on amlodipine, that combination can mean more unsteadiness, more flushing, and more risk when standing up. Now caffeine. Caffeine can temporarily raise blood pressure and make your morning readings look worse than they really are if you measure too soon after coffee, espresso, energy drinks, or pre-workout products. So now the same person may be drinking something at night that magnifies dizziness and drinking something in the morning that distorts their blood pressure pattern. And then they think the medication is unstable. Sometimes the medication isn't unstable at all. The inputs are. What to do? Be more intentional with both. If you drink alcohol, be aware of timing, quantity, and how you feel when standing. If you drink coffee or energy drinks, avoid taking your blood pressure reading right in the middle of the caffeine peak, and don't assume one spiked number tells the full story. 10. Restaurant meals and cheat meals count more than people think. This is the part people dismiss because it doesn't happen daily. It's only once in a while. It's just the weekend. It's only when we go out. It's only one takeout meal. But restaurant meals are often where sodium, hidden sauces, oversized portions, and surprise ingredients all collide at once. A single restaurant meal can deliver more sodium than many people realize. Add soup, bread, appetizer, sauce, dressing, and dessert, and the next morning's blood pressure reading may tell the story even if you never touched the salt shaker yourself. And if that meal also includes alcohol, dessert coffee, or a healthy side like tomato-based soup, avocado topping, or a potassium-heavy vegetable juice, now multiple variables are moving at the same time. That's why people wake up confused after a weekend. They think the medication changed. The medication didn't change. The environment around it did. What to do? Treat restaurant meals as blood pressure events, not guilty pleasures, not personal failures. Events. Something that deserves awareness, because it creates conditions your medication must respond to. Now let's come back to Richard. His potassium did not rise because he ignored his doctor. It rose because he was trying to be healthier in a way that sounded wise and looked harmless. 12 ounces of coconut water a day, sometimes more in warm weather, a low-sodium diet, fewer obvious high-potassium foods, good intentions everywhere. But nobody had ever asked the one question that would have exposed the problem faster than any lecture. What are you drinking every day? Once that changed, the pattern changed. And that's the bigger lesson in all of this. Most people do not need more fear, they need more specificity. Because watch your diet is useless unless someone tells you what to watch, why it matters, and which foods only become risky in the context of the medication you're actually taking. So here are the 10 things again. High potassium foods that add up faster than people realize on Losartan or Lisinopril, coconut water and other healthy drinks, hiding potassium in plain sight. Salt substitutes made with potassium chloride. Grapefruit's lesser-known citrus relatives for people on amlodipine. Real black licorice and licorice root products. Hidden sodium in processed foods that look perfectly harmless. Electrolyte drinks and hydration powders that are not neutral. Smoothies, green powders, and meal replacements that turn healthy habits into medication conflict. Alcohol and caffeine changing how your pressure behaves and how your readings look. And restaurant meals that overload the system in ways people rarely count. Your blood pressure medication can be one of the most effective tools protecting your heart, your brain, your kidneys, and your future. But medication works best in an environment that supports it, not one that quietly fights it 3 meals a day. None of this means panic. None of this means throw everything out tonight. None of this means stop your prescription. It means ask better questions, read more labels, track patterns more honestly, and bring your food, drink, and supplement habits into the same conversation as your medication. Because the prescription bottle is only one part of blood pressure control. The kitchen is the other part. And for many people, the kitchen is where the real interference has been hiding all along. Which of these 10 was completely new to you, and which one is sitting in your kitchen right now? Share this with someone taking amlodipine, Losartan, or Lisinopril who was told what to swallow, but never told what to watch. This is Senior Diet Coach. Take the prescription seriously, take the food seriously, and make both work on the same side.